Yanmar 100. We're hooking a fixed 59-inch grapple saw to it. So on the Yanmar, it's got dual auxiliary. So this is your high flow switch. And on this side is your low flow. So make this open and close. This one rotate. Then we hold this button down and run the open and close again, and that'll make the saw come in and out. So we have to drill a 1/2-inch hole in that face. If you pop this off, you can see a spot where this button goes in there. So I just drill the hole in, and then I feed my wire down through my joystick, and then I take it right out the bottom there. Drill me a 1/2-inch hole in that cover that's the pattern changer, and then it's pretty easy to run over across to the battery. Key-string. What I do is I just get me a T, and then I take this fitting out and put it in the end of the T, and then run my K-string in there. Yanmar wanted you to drill and tap this cover and put your K-string into that, but I think the T is way easier and it's a lot cleaner. So then you just run it down through that cover and right on. I put the K-string on this side of the boom, and then the electrical on that side, and that's the way I got my grapple hooked up. So when you're hooking up a grapple saw on a Yanmar, I would say the couple big things that I run into the first time I did it was when you're feeding the joystick wire through, they put some loom on there. It's like the braided loom for the wiring, and I cannot get that wire to feed through there. So I just cut that loom off, and then I run my wires through, and then when I get it done, I just heat shrink it. The biggest thing is just getting that wire through there. They make that joystick really, really tight. That would be the biggest thing. And then that piece on the joystick where that switch is, it's really, really thin. So you got to be really careful when you drill that hole through there, because you can break it. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty easy to run all the wiring and everything. It all seems to, they give you lots of room. The only other thing we ran into is on this machine, it's never had anything on the auxiliaries. And in the low flow side, I think they called it the fourth auxiliary or something. It didn't have reliefs in it, so it was running at system pressure. And on the rotate, we want to set that at like 2,000 to 2,500. We don't want it higher than that, because that's going to just cause wear and damage to that rotator motor. And then the saw circuit, we'd want to set it like 3,500 PSI and as much oil as you can get to it. And that is like 32 gallons at 0 PSI drag on the system that you can get out of the high flow. If you start on like my flow meter, what I do is I screw it in and I start building pressure against the pump, and at like 2,000 PSI, I'm at like 26 gallons a minute, and we'll cut pretty good at that. And then the K-strain's pretty easy. On a Yanmar, it's not a pressurized tank, so they just have like a barb fitting with hose clamps on it. Where other machines that you run into, you'll see that they are a pressurized tank, and you can't do that because they have too much pressure against that fitting. So you put that T in there and then just move that fitting over, and then that allows you to put your K-strain. There's only one port in that hydraulic tank for that Yanmar. But other than that, I would say it's pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward. The valve bank's under the floor. It wasn't terrible to adjust, other than we couldn't adjust it because it didn't have relief cartridges in it. But they were going to get all that in there, and it'll be good to go. So when you're doing the Yanmar, I would say the biggest thing is that joystick, putting the button in it is the right way to do it. We just got to be careful when you do it. So hopefully you learned something.